بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وآله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Let's start with it. 18th century German philosophy prior to Kant. Kant undoubtedly casts a long shadow on the history of philosophy, history of 18th century philosophy. Not only did he initiate a revolution in philosophy, so-called Copernican revolution, but in the course of doing so, he thoroughly exposed the metaphysical system of his predecessors as rationalistic castles in the air. That's one way of looking at it. And it's true, but we should also remember that Kant said that his critique or his philosophy was, his critique of pure reason was an apology for Leibniz. So should always keep in mind these two aspects. This latter negative part of his project was in fact so successful that the pre-Kantian period of German philosophy is widely viewed even today as a period of benighted dogmatism. Dogmatism in the Kantian sense, I guess. It's not the same as general, linguistic or literal meaning of dogmatism. I mean, that period is by definition dogmatist in Kantian term. Even Kant's own philosophy before his mature philosophy is dogmatist in that sense. So here, dogmatism just means pre-critical logic. During this time, German philosophy, such as it was, is thought to be preoccupied with the sort of dry scholasticism and the hidebound metaphysics that had long since been surpassed in Britain and France. A circumstance reflected in the fact that nearly all intellectuals of note were university professors, male of course, as women could not attend university, who published lengthy academic tomes and even lecture in Latin rather than vernacular, other than in German, for example. Indeed, isolated from the rest of Europe by enduring confessional tensions, Protestant against Catholics, and the convolutions of internal politics, the German-speaking lands that constituted the Holy Roman Empire might seem like a sort of intellectual island, a bulwark against the advance of modern philosophical innovation, and a place from which few ideas of note ever emanated. That's a very outdated conception. Not that is until the advent of the Kantian philosophy. Okay, so yet quite on the contrary, the Whiggish philosophical history is Kant's success inspired and continues to inspire the German-speaking lands of Europe in the period before Kant were host to a rich intellectual milieu. It was, of course, the homeland of Leibniz, a follower of Descartes in his own right, whose contributions to the flourishing of intellectual culture include his past publication, but also his fruitful efforts to found a German learned society and his support of forward-thinking philosophies. His support of forward-thinking philosophers for university positions. What does forward-thinking philosophers mean? Thinking the changing milieu, or reflecting, thereby accelerating Germany's transition into the era of Enlightenment. German academic philosophers were thoroughly influenced by Leibniz's thought, but their creative appropriations of it resulted in innovations such as invention of the disciplines of aesthetics and empirical psychology. Germany was the site of vigorous and publicly enacted intellectual disputes such as that at the new university in Halle, where the Libertas Philosophandi itself came under threat but was ultimately, if not immediately, vindicated. Outside of the academic context, radical philosophical thinking circulated underground in clandestine texts that linked Germany with the current ideas flowing the rest of Europe and Britain. It was moreover a period in the history of philosophy in which women and other underrepresented thinkers contributed in integral way to the conception, propagation, and refinement of modern ideas and to the expansion of the Enlightenment. In short, this is a vibrant period in the history of philosophy that is eminently worthy of study, even apart from its relation, whether as a foil or a crucible, to the great philosopher of Königsberg. Well, we are studying it as a foil or crucible. So basically what we are interested in is Wolff, Leibnizian Wolffian philosophy, Halle, Pietism, and Baumgarten, I guess. We'll quickly look at other stuff, and I guess Christian Augustus Crucius. So these 3 or 4 are important for understanding Kant. We have nothing against other people there, but they are not our immediate interest here, and we'll quickly skip through, go over life and those things, because we are more interested in philosophies rather than life. Okay, so first is Christian Thomasius, life and works. Christian Thomasius was born on, how you pronounce it, Leipzig in 1655. He was the son of a well-known jurist and philosopher in the University of Leipzig who counted Leibniz among his students. Christian matriculated in the philosophy faculty in Leipzig in 1969. As a result of his father's lecture, particularly on Hugo and his instance in Fendorf's De Jure Nature Gentium, Thomasius took up the study of law in Frankfurt in der Oder in 1675 and was awarded a doctorate in 1679. After a brief journey in Holland, Thomasius returned to Leipzig, where he worked unhappily as a lawyer while also holding private lectures on natural jurisprudence. Thomasius attests to the fundamental reorientation of his thinking affected by his reading of Fendorf, the moral philosopher. Anyway, in particular, which he credits for convincing him of independence of natural law from theology. So there is a natural law, and then there is a law of God. And ultimately, Enlightenment, early Enlightenment philosophers argue that natural law is superior to the law of God, revealed law of God, and more authentic, and less prone to human intervention, I guess. In particular, as well as the need to question authority. Which authority? Whenever they talk about question authority, it's always a negative side. So you're questioning existing authorities, but you are trying to establish new authorities. And resist religious intolerance. Obviously, by religion here, they mean Protestant religion. It's itself a religion of modernity. And most of these thinkers are Protestants themselves. Or even if they are Catholic, they have Protestant set of mind, like Descartes. By which I mean individualism and worshipping freedom, personal freedom, and giving priority to human intellect over the revealed word of God. Okay, this new anti-authoritarianism and this new anti-authoritarian cosmine is clearly evident in a dissertation on the bigamy of 1685, in which Thomasius defend a practice as consistent with natural law, in which anything led to a confrontation with the professor of theology faculty at Leipzig. Well, if arguing for bigamy is a sign of anti-authoritarianism, then anti-authoritarian hasn't succeeded much. This new anti-authoritarianism cast of mind is clearly evident in a dissertation on bigamy. Okay, we already did that. In which one defends the practice consistent with natural law and which as against the law of God, for example. So natural law should be given priority, and which unsurprisingly led to a confrontation with a professor in the theology faculty. It's important to note that these debates, so theology and philosophy are already departments within university. So theology is no longer still might be a dominant sciences, but not the sole arbitrator of the dispute. That's a conflict. So that's a conflict among different faculties within a university. So there's already a thoroughly secular milieu or the context. Thomasius's pioneering decision to hold lectures in German. Okay, so that's an important thing. Well, it's not that much of a revolution. Luther had already translated Bible or written his tomes in German. So had Descartes in French, for example. And obviously English were already writing in English. So announced in German in 1600 likewise provoked controversy, as did his publication beginning in 1600 of a monthly journal, the first periodical published in German. I mean, the fact that he was able to do that and it just sparked controversy means that that was something already in the atmosphere or in the environment. Entitled Monarchsgespräche, in which Thomasius commented frequently satirically on the local intellectual scene. Thomasius' lectures and publication increasingly generated conflict with the theological faculty. So this is conflict among faculties in Leipzig or between faculties, Leipzig, which upheld a rather strict form of Lutheran orthodoxy. We should remember that Lutheran orthodoxy is part of, Luther was part of modernity. He can be actually considered a co-founder of modernity with modern philosophy with Descartes in many ways. So Lutheran religion shouldn't be considered as something outside modernity. But obviously Luther's own, the logical conclusion of Luther's own ideas pointed towards something which Lutheran orthodoxy was unwilling to take. Leipzig, which upheld a rather strict form of Lutheran, and while his connection with the Saxon court stood him in good state for a time. So, and obviously these different courts within different principalities in Germany used Lutheranism as a justification for their secular rule. And they similarly played, for example, philosophy and other disciplines against. So they kept sort of balance. So it was a secular rule in the modern sense of the word, in which Luther was the ally of German nationalism. Lutheran orthodoxy was ally of German nationalism and German princes. But the main driving force was still, secular modernity at the end. And while his connections with Saxon court stood him in good state for a time, his defense of an interfaith marriage involving a Lutheran Saxon court and Calvinist Brandenburg princess cost him his protection. So by interfaith they mean among Protestants themselves. So that's how narrow their conception of interfaith is. And when they talk about tolerance, it's mainly tolerance between different sects of Protestantism, basically, among different sects of Protestantism, and sometimes between Protestants and Catholics. And the reason was that new German nationalist principalities were founded and justified on the basis of Lutheran or Calvinist religions. So that's why interfaith marriage, for example, was regarded as something affecting the secular state itself at the time. And in March 1690, he was prohibited from publishing and holding lectures, private and academic, in electoral in electoral Saxony. Thomasius sought refuge in Berlin in the neighboring state of Brandenburg, which was led by the Calvinist elector Frederick III, later King Frederick I, and had a tradition of toleration, tolerance for non-Calvinist Protestants. That's what tolerance mean. Even today, tolerance really means tolerance for views which are compatible with general liberal and secular worldview. So it doesn't mean tolerance for example, those views which reject the worldview, the liberal worldview as a whole. Partly through the support of Pufendorf himself, Thomasius was given an appointment as counselor to the court and was allowed to lecture at Halle, which in Saxony would become Friedrichs Universität, with Thomasius among the founding faculty members in law. Thomasius was soon joined by pietist, Orientalist, theologian, and educational reformer August Hermann Franke, who had likewise run afoul of the religious authorities in Leipzig. Thomasius himself had been sympathetic with anti-scholastic and anti-authoritarian bent of pietists, and had publicly defended Franke at one point in Leipzig. The pietists are also a school of thought or sect within Protestantism, and they emphasize freedom of will and feeling and all those things. And obviously Kant was born in a pietist family, although his parents were the lay people. I'm sure he had some influence from pietism, although it's often exaggerated. And publicly defended Franke at one point in Leipzig. However, a public break occurred when Thomasius published a criticism in 1699 of the pedagogy Franke had adopted in his famous educational institution in Halle. So these thinkers, obviously, they are university professors, and they have controversies among themselves as well, and they are intolerant of each other as well, even though they may preach tolerance, so-called. Okay. Should always be very wary of these concept, tolerance, freedom, etc. Thomasius continued to stir controversy with his lectures and publications, which frequently overreached the purview of the juristic faculty, such as his critical discussion of witchcraft trials, and breached decorum by personally attacking his theological colleagues, all of which led to a reprimand from the Brandenburg court in 1702 and an order to adhere to the boundaries between faculty. So that's one of the hallmark of modern secularism, is demarcation of different faculties, different areas of life. Thomasius, so the interest of faculties rather than any religious or non-religious intolerance probably played much greater role than we are made to think. Thomasius's dissertation, De Concubinatu of 1713, which he contended that in which he contended that the use of concubines does not violate the marriage contract, given that the purpose of marriage solely procreation, also generated heated discussion. While Thomasius and Franke reconciled in 1704, Thomasius did not play a significant role in the later controversy between Wolff and the Pietists, and Wolff had influence on Kant as well. So Wolff is the rationalist, and Pietists are so more towards, more emphasize the aspect of feeling and emotions. So they are more aligned to empiricism and romanticism, I guess. He died in Halle on 23rd of September 1728. Thomas's work covered a wide range of topics. In addition to the topical essays and dissertations already mentioned, the other books, he wrote a number of texts on logic, introduction to the doctrine of reason, as well as an influential excursion into metaphysics, essays on the essence of spirit, 1699. That might have some influence on Kant as well. And now his philosophies, I don't know. So probably we'll stop here and do his philosophy bit next time, inshallah. Subhanakallah, bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk, wa salli wa sallim ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa azwajihi wa dhurriyyatihi ajma'in, rahmatika ya